The Screen Team is back. My name is Chris, and this is Matt Whitworth. We're getting ready to review an old school film back from the 1970s. It's an action film called Bullitt, and it's got one of the kind of last good John Wayne type of guys, you know,
Yeah.
Steve McQueen, man. You know, he's a guy's guy, right?
That's right. Well, back in the day, like, actors in Hollywood were real men, and they just kind of happened to fall into this gig and then carve out these legendary careers
That's
for
a good
themselves.
point. Like, they were just, like, you know, real dudes. They were, like, real, you know.
And he was a stunt driver. This is a guy, I mean, I love Steve McQueen, so part of my fanboyism, but he grew up in an abusive home, went to all these different boys' homes and stuff, and his dad used to beat him up until he got big enough to where he could stand up to him.
Sure.
And then he moved out, went to boys' homes. A lot of the stunt driving in this movie is actually him, and this was a movie that I guess was a labor of love for him anyway, because it was produced by his own small-scale studio.
Okay. So what's going on with this film? Steve McQueen, he's a detective from San Francisco,
Yeah.
correct? Right?
That's right. Yeah, it's set. It's actually 1968.
Okay.
It's a pivotal year for movies. Anyway, we'll get to it in a little bit later. But an aspiring politician played by Robert Vaughn he's actually a very ambitious politician. He's not an aspiring one. Yeah. He has he's working on eliminating the mob, you know, in San Francisco, and he actually has someone that's a defector from the mob, and he needs witness protection. So, as a babysitting job, as Steve McQueen and company calls it, Steve McQueen plays Bullitt, a great detective, one of the leads on the police department, and he's in charge of keeping this guy safe. Well, on the first night that they have him, they take him to the hotel. They get a call that Robert Vaughn's character wants to come up at about 1 in the morning. And before they can even confirm it, they barge in and shoot the witness, and they shoot one of the police officers.
Yeah.
And then from there, it just becomes this cat and mouse game of trying to keep him safe and trying to keep the public from knowing and the mob from knowing so that they can get hot on their trail. This is a movie. It has a good plot. It's a very good plot. But there's one reason alone to see this movie besides being Steve McQueen, and it has what I consider even today to be the greatest car chase scene in any movie.
And not only is it great, it is like, it's not like it's like 2 minutes long. It's like 15, 20 minutes long. It's crazy.
It's amazing. The shooting techniques in this are phenomenal. Like, because before this movie came out, and there might have been some other ones that were precursors that did it, but nothing was on the level of this film when it came out. Usually, you know, when you get into the car, you'd have a scene that you would film in the car. You could have very clear backdrop that was moving, and it wasn't, you know, it was in a studio lot. This one, they're actually in the cars. They're actually filming through the streets of San Francisco, one of the hilliest cities in America.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible how they're able to get all this. You know, like my wife and I were watching, and she's like, it's clear they're driving. How did they plan this stuff around? A lot of it was just happy accidents and just a lot of luck, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, the hubcaps falling off. That's a happy accident. You know, like they were hitting other cars. That actually just happened. That wasn't choreographed that way. You know, they have no shocks back then too, so you see the cars just bouncing up and down.
Right.
And it really amps up when they get more into the countryside because they start pulling out the shotgun. And it's amazing how they're able to do that back then, because in the 60s they didn't have the special effects that they have now or the props that they do to really fake it. So it's like, how are they doing all this? Yeah. You know, it's just a lot of, I think, incredible ingenuity and luck, probably.
Yeah. This is my first time watching the film, and obviously I loved the chase car scene as well. That was definitely a grand point for me. I also enjoyed the cat and mouse game between Steve McQueen and Robert Vaughn. Is that right?
Yes.
I enjoyed their dynamic together, especially when Robert Vaughn, you know, we find out that his witness you know, has passed away, has died, and he wants the body, but Steve McQueen doesn't want to give him the body. So he hides him. And he's like, you better give me that body back. And he's like, we'll see.
He waits for him to have, you know, to force, you know, the statute of limitation or whatever it is, you know, the paperwork that forces him to hand over the body.
And basically Robert Vaughn gets all these other, you know, bigger type police captains to, you know, kind of come in and say, hey, you know, you need to do it. And Steve McQueen's still like,
I'm Steve McQueen. And they're like, you are Steve McQueen.
All right, you got until Sunday then, McQueen. You better give that body back.
Well, 1968, when this came out, was a pivotal year for movies because that's when the rating system came out in November. I think this just missed the mark for that, but it still feels like an R for that era. It's incredibly violent. You see bodies burning in a car and at the end of one of the chase scenes. You see horrific wounds, and it happens a lot of it off camera, which I think is even more effective, the theater of the mind aspect of it, but it still is I think, very unsettling, especially for 1968.
That's a good point.
It's the same year that 2001: A Space Odyssey came out, Oliver, which won Best Picture. It's the same year that Night of the Living Dead. These are a lot of movies that really changed cinema, and it's no real wonder why. It's because the rating system came out, so they were able to do a little bit more and have it, broken up so that they weren't forced into hiding, these aspects and these film techniques.
You know what else I enjoyed? The very beginning of the film. It felt to me like a James Bond kind of opening, very spy-esque, and I love how they have like the title card just coming in different directions, up and down and from side to side, and you're seeing all these different guys. You're like, okay, who's that guy? Is that a bad guy or a good guy? What's going on here? And
it's like almost amoral in a way. You're just introducing the characters, you're setting the tone, and you don't really know who is good and who's bad because there is a good plot twist later on without giving too much away that not everything is as it seems.
Sure.
And very cool. The music's also fantastic. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. It has that cool jazz kind of score to it too, and it was very cutting edge for the time too.
So a lot of good points. Any bad points of the film?
I think it's just a little bit slow. I think it'd be hard for an audience maybe modern to get into it, but once it picks up, it really does. Again, it's a film that really builds to a crescendo, like another movie that we reviewed, the Sahara. This is one that is a slow burn, so it also has a lot of nuances to it. So it does require your paying attention. So it'd be one that you can't just have it on the background while you're studying something else or doing dishes or doing whatever housework. It's something that does beg to be paid attention to, and the payoff is definitely worth it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is a little slow. I've kind of felt like if they would have edited it just a little bit quicker in parts, that it might have picked it up, because there's scenes where they're, kind of not chasing after a guy, but, slowly kind of trying to, see what the guy's going to do or whatever. And it's just like, okay, is he going to do it? They're holding, they keep holding on to the shot, and it was like, so yeah, I'd agree. I think the tempo was just a little slow in parts, but other than that, it's definitely a keeper, and it's a classic too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, the movie's called Bullitt, starring Steve McQueen from '68, as he said. I said the '70s, close enough, right?
It feels like a movie from the '70s. It was ahead of its time.
It does feel like it's from the '70s. Yeah. All right, you can find it on DVD. Matt, thank you for being on the show, and we want to remind folks that it's the holiday season.
That's right.
And if people are trying to find something for their significant other, Whitworth Gift Chest Jewelers is a perfect place, right?
That's right. The only place. No, I'm kidding. But we do have 20% off all watches and clocks. We do have layaway. It's just 20% down for any regular stock merchandise. Lots of clearance items and the largest selection of estate jewelry around.
There you go, man. Are you guys on Facebook and websites?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and our website is just whitworthsjewelry.com.
All right, that's Matt. I'm Chris. We're part of the Screen Team. And remember, we want you to know before you go.